Good day, Dr. Ivan Shah. We are from Group 4. My name is Tan Jun Yu and my metric number is 299786. Today I will be beginning by introducing the background of economic development that frame this presentation. This slide from the first part of the introduction is outline the broader development context faced by many countries. While many economies are able to grow out of poverty and reach middle income status, surprisingly few manage to progress further and become high-income economies. This challenge is commonly referred to as the middle income trap. At this stage of development, countries can no longer rely on cheap labor or capital accumulation to sustain growth. Instead, they face competition from low-wage producers on one side and advanced innovation-driven economies on the other. Therefore, escaping the middle income trap requires a shift toward productivity-driven and innovation-led growth, supported by strong institutions and skilled human capital. This theoretical background is important for understanding the development challenges faced by Malaysia and set the foundation for the discussion in the next slide. Continue with the introduction. This slide focuses on Malaysian development strategy and provide the context for the later analysis. RMK11 was introduced as the final phase of Vision 2020 with the term occurring growth on people. The plan aimed to shift Malaysia away from an input-driven growth model toward one that emphasized productivity, innovation, and exclusive development. It also sought to address structural issues related to the middle income trap. However, the end of RMK11 coincided with the COVID-19 pandemic. The pandemic disrupted economic growth and exposed structural weakness, particularly in areas such as public health system and supply chains. As a result, Malaysian development priorities need to be resources. In response to these challenges, IMK13 was introduced. While it builds upon the foundation laid by IMK11, IMK13 placed greater emphasis on resilience, economic security, and sustainability. This reflects the need for a more adaptive and robust development strategy in an increasingly uncertain global environment. So this slide provides an overview of RMK11, which was implemented from 2016 to 2020. RMK11 was significant because it represents the final phase of Vision 2020, a long-term national vision introduced in 1991 to transform Malaysia into a fully developed nation. The main goal of RMK11 was to prepare Malaysia to achieve high income status. Its themes occurring growth on people highlight a shift away from focusing purely on GDP growth toward more inclusive and people-centered development. In other words, economic growth was meant to benefit all Malaysians, not just selected groups. Under RMK11, the government introduced 6 strategy thrusts covering areas such as exclusiveness, human capital development, green growth, infrastructure, and economic restructuring. These were supplied by 6 so-called game changers, which were designed to accelerate development. However, despite recognizing the right priority, RMK11 faced several major challenges. The most significant was the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020, which disrupts economic activity and exposed weakness in contingency planning and policy monitoring. Productivity growth also remained weaker than expected, partly due to Malaysia's continued reliance on low-skilled foreign labor, which reduced incentives for automation and upskilling. In addition, although SME were mentioned as an important growth driver, many support programs were fragmented and poorly coordinated, making it difficult for SME to scale up and adopt digital technology. Overall, RMK11 provides a solid policy foundation, but its implementation outcomes were mixed, limiting Malaysian progress toward high-income status. This slide presents an overview of RMK13, which was introduced as part of the government effort to reshape development toward a Madani and high-income Malaysia by 2030. In many ways, RMK13 can be seen as the final major push before Malaysia aims to officially reach high-income status. What is interesting about RMK13 is that It clearly adopts a broader view of development rather than focusing solely on income or GDP. The plain emphasis empowering people by improving their capability and economic opportunity. This approach closely reflects Amartya Sen's capability perspective, where development is about expanding people's choice and quality of life. RMK 13 is structured around three main pillars: Menaikkan Ceiling, which focus on raising economic potential; Menaikkan Lantai, which aims to improve living standard; and Memperkukuh Tata Kelola, which stress the importance of strong institution and good governance together. These three pillars show that economic growth, social well-being, and institutionally quality must progress simultaneously. In terms of measurable target, RMK 13 aims for GDP growth of around 5.5 to 6%, GNI per capita of USD 20,000 by 2030, and average labor productivity growth of 3.6% per year. These indicators of consistent with the international development benchmark decrease in comparative development study. The plan also places strong emphasis on high growth, high value sectors such as digital technology, semiconductor, renewable energy, and advanced manufacturing. This reflect development theory relate to structural transformation, capital accumulation, and technology progress. At the same time, IMK 13 highlights sustainability goals, including long-term climate commitment, reinforcing the idea that development must be both inclusive and environmentally sustainable. Overall, RMK 13 integrate concept of from development theory with particular policy targets, positioning it as a comprehensive strategy to guide Malaysia toward becoming a resilient and high-income nation by 2030.
My part compares the core philosophies and goals of 11th Malaysia Plan and the ambitious new vision set for the 13th Malaysia Plan. As you've seen in the first section, the two plans represent fundamentally different strategies for achieving high income status. The RMK 11 was titled Anchoring Growth on People. Its objective was a final push, a quantitative effort to hit the high income ceiling, especially the gross national income per capita 15,000 US dollar by 2020. The plan was driven by increasing labor productivity and traditional investment, aiming primarily to bridge the final income gap. In contrast, the RMK 13, anchored by the Economic Madani framework, aims for a structural overhaul. The objective is to achieve sustainable and resilient high income status with a higher target of gross national income per capita 17,000 US dollar by 2030. The key difference is the driver. RMK 13 relies on accelerating structural change and economic complexity. It addresses the deeper challenge that RMK 11 could not fully solve, escaping the middle income trap. Moving to the strategic pillars, we see the shift in economic structure. Under RMK 11, the focus was largely sector acceleration in traditional industries like services and manufacturing. Technology played a minimal role, mostly as an enabler for improving basic infrastructure. RMK 13 flipped this. It targets high growth, high value industries like AI, advanced E&E, and rare earth elements. Here, technology is a fundamental catalyst, driving economic complexity and pushing us toward made by Malaysia innovation. Next, social equity. RMK 11 focused on redistribution and uplifting B40 households, a necessary poverty reduction focus. RMK 13 goes deeper with structural wage reform and raising floor. The crucial target here is to increase the compensation of employees or wage share to 40% of gross domestic product. This ensures that high income status benefits the average worker. Finally, sustainability. For RMK11, green growth was generally treated as an add-on to development. RMK13 radically changes this by mainstreaming the green and blue economy as a new economic driver via the Malaysia's National Energy Transition Roadmap, which is NETR. This aligns Malaysia with global standard, making sustainability a prerequisite for development nation status.
To begin, let's look at the evolution of our national strategy. We are moving from fixing an old model to building a completely new one. First, the focus is where RMK11 focus on efficiency, TVAC, and supporting the B40 group. RMK13 is designed to reshape our entire development toward a Madani economy. For the strategy, in the past, we tried to shift from cheap labor to productivity. Now, under RMK13, the strategy is to leapfrog into high growth, high value industry. And for the status, RMK11 was unfortunately limited by structural gaps and the impact of COVID-19. RMK13 is our electric supercar built for high-tech engine and long-term economic resilience. So for RMK13 critical success factors, for RMK13 to succeed where previous plan fell short, we must address these critical deal breakers. First is productivity leap. We are targeting multi-factor productivity MFP growth of over 3.6% annually. This will be achieved through mandatory automation and high-tech adoption to finally end our reliance on cheap foreign labor. Second is wage justice. We are aiming for a 14% wage to GDP ratio and a GNI per capita of USD 20,000 by 2030. This isn't just about giving aid, it's about fixing the root cause of low pay so wage reflect actual economic value. The last is governance reform. Finally, we are shifting to needs-based policy instead of race-based one. Our goal is to eliminate institutional drag and bureaucracy to ensure transparent and equitability national development. Innovative breakthrough of us. In conclusion, Malaysia stand a crossroad. The outcome of RMK13 will determine our future for decades to come. First is the breakthrough. The success mean achieving our high tech and rich target. If we do, Malaysia officially transform into a high income nation with a truly developed and equitable society. Second is the stagnation trap. On the other hand, if productivity and institutional reform fails, we remain caught in the middle income trap. This leads to a persistent high cost of living and slow wage growth. Lastly is the bottom line. RMK11 gave us a strategic map, but RMK13 provide the structural change required. Radical change is no longer optional, it is non-negotiable for our survival, for our future survival.
Hello, my name is Muhammad Farid Iman bin Muhammad Fidis and my metric number is 306445. I will explain the key challenge faced during the 11 Malaysian Plan or RMK11 which was implemented from 2016 to 2020. First, economic challenge. Malaysia experienced moderated economic growth due to global uncertainties such as trade tension and slower global growth. At the same time, declining commodity price, especially oil and palm oil, reduced government revenue and limited development spending. Second, cost of living and social inequality. The rising cost of living increased financial pressure on households, particularly the P40 and M40 group. Income inequality remained a major concern and social mobility for low-income groups continued to be limited. Third, labor market and human capital issue. there was a clear mismatch between the education system and the industry need. This led the graduated unemployment and underemployment. In addition, Malaysia continued to rely heavily on low-skilled foreign labor and slowing the transition to a high-skilled economy. Fourth, structural and productivity constraint. Many small and medium enterprises were slow in adopting technology. As a result, productive growth remained low, making it difficult for Malaysians to move toward a high-value and innovation-driven economy. Fifth, governance and regional development issue. Bureaucratic inefficiency, limited digitalization, and budget concern affect policy implementation. Development gap between Peninsular Malaysia and Sabah, Sarawak also remains significant. Finally, external environmental challenge. Environmental issues such as climate change and rapid urbanization place pressure on infrastructure. Toward the end of RMK11, the COVID-19 pandemic further disrupt economic activity and development goals. In conclusion, this challenge highlight the need for more resilient, inclusive, and future-oriented development approach in Malaysian future plan. Thank you.
A very good day to Dr. Irwan. My name is Gavin Chong and my student ID is 302290. In this video, I will be presenting about the potential challenges faced by Rancangan Malaysia ke-13 RMK13 and also the conclusion. One of the key challenges facing by the 13 Malaysia Plan is global economic uncertainty. Ongoing trade tensions between the United States and China may reduce global demand and disrupt international supply chains. This is particularly significant for Malaysia, as exports such as semiconductors and palm oil could be directly affected. As an open and trade-dependent economy, Malaysia remains highly vulnerable to external economic shocks beyond its control. Another major challenge is the persistent development gap between the Peninsular Malaysia and also East Malaysia. Many rural areas in Sabah and Sarawak still lack basic infrastructure, including transportation, healthcare, and digital connectivity. Development efforts in these regions are further complicated by geographical constraints and high implementation costs. For example, large-scale projects such as the Pan-Borneo Highway face delays, highlighting issues related to cost, coordination, and execution. In addition, RMK13 faces serious fiscal constraints due to rising public debt, which has exceeded 60% of the entire Malaysian GDP. This limits the government's fiscal space to fund development projects. A significant portion of government expenditures continues to be allocated to subsidize public sector wages and social assistance. At the same time, RMK13 requires substantial investment in technology, digitalization, and the green transition. Balancing fiscal sustainability with long-term development priorities will therefore be one of the most critical challenges under the 13 Malaysia Plan. RMK13 addresses the limitations of RMK11 by introducing deeper and more comprehensive structural reforms, while RMK11 focuses on building the necessary foundation through productivity improvement, human capital development, and also institutional strengthening. RMK13 moves beyond this by restructuring the economy to support long-term and high-quality growth. In this sense, RMK11 can be seen as the building of the base of Malaysia's development, while RMK13 aims to raise the ceiling. The main improvements under RMK13 include a strong emphasis on high growth and high-value industry, also governance reform and stronger institutional coordination. These implements are critical to enhance productivity, encourage innovation, and ensuring that economic growth is more than inclusive and sustainable. However, If these reforms are not effectively implemented, Malaysia risks experiencing prolonged stagnation in the upper middle income track. Without meaningful process in structural transformation and governance, the country may struggle to achieve its long-term ambition of becoming a truly high-income nation. That's all from us. Thank you.